The night on the alien marketplace was cold, the air heavy with smoke coming from broken generators. Stalls flickered with weak blue lights, and shadows moved like scared creatures hiding from the wind. A young alien girl, no older than 7, ran barefoot across the stone floor, her small feet slipping as she pushed through the crowd. Her bright blue eyes were full of tears. Glowing softly in the darkness, she kept shouting for help, her voice breaking again and again. "Please, someone help my mom, please," she cried, but no one stopped. Merchants quickly pulled down their metal shutters. Mothers grabbed their children and stepped away. Old men whispered that the girl was cursed, that her family brought danger wherever they went. The girl ignored all the whispers. She kept running toward the far corner of the marketplace. There, on the cold ground, lay her mother. Her body shook violently, every muscle spasming as strange purple energy sparked across her skin. Her hands curled in pain, her breath came in broken gasps, and her eyes were half closed. The girl fell to her knees beside her mother and lifted her trembling head onto her lap. "Mama, please wake up. Mama, please," she said, her voice cracking with fear. People watched from a distance, whispering to one another. "She is infected," one muttered. "Don't go near them," another warned. "She will die soon," someone else whispered. "Stay away, the sickness spreads." The little girl squeezed her mother's cold hand and looked around once more, begging everyone to help. But all she saw were backs turning away from her. Just then, in a quiet corner of the market, a human man stopped walking. He had been heading home after repairing a generator on the outskirts of the colony. He heard the girl's desperate cry and turned to look. Humans were rare here, and most people stayed away from them. But he ignored the stares and stepped closer. He saw the mother shaking violently on the ground, and his face changed. He recognized the symptoms. He had seen something similar inside a classified human medical file long ago. The girl noticed him and ran to him, grabbing his hand tightly. "You are human," she cried. "Humans fix sickness. Humans know medicine. Please, please fix my mom." Her tiny hand shook so hard that he gently held it still. He knelt beside the mother and checked her pulse, her breathing, the strange energy lines burning under her skin. He frowned deeply. This wasn't any normal sickness. Someone had done this to her. He whispered under his breath, "This is not natural. This is a forced reaction." The girl tugged his sleeve again. "Please save her. You're the only one who stopped when I cried." Everyone else ran away. Before he could answer, heavy footsteps echoed across the marketplace. A squad of armored alien guards approached fast. Their black helmets reflected the dim lights. Their boots made the stone floor vibrate. One of them pointed a glowing baton at the mother and shouted, "Step away from the contaminated woman." The human didn't move. He looked up at the guard and replied quietly, "She is not contaminated. She is injured. Someone did something to her." The guard slammed the baton on the ground, sending a spark across the stones. "Human, this is not your concern. Move aside." The little girl ran behind the human and hid, gripping the fabric of his jacket. Her voice was small and shaking. "Please don't leave us, please." The human took a slow breath. He knew helping them might bring trouble, but he also knew that if he stepped away, the mother would be taken to the quarantine pits, and no one ever came back from there. He put one hand gently on the girl's shoulder and whispered, "I won't go anywhere." The guards stepped closer, preparing to force him aside. A crowd began forming around them, watching, judging, waiting for something to happen. The human stood up and positioned himself in front of the mother and child. The guards raised their weapons. Everyone expected the human to give up and walk away, but he did something no one expected. He clenched his fists, looked straight at the guards, and said in a steady, fearless voice, "If I step away from her, she will die, so I won't move." A shocked silence spread across the marketplace. The guards stared at him in disbelief, the crowd gasped, and the little girl's eyes widened with hope. Her mother's shaking worsened. Time was running out. The human looked at the child and said softly, "I'm going to save your mom, I promise." And in that moment, for the first time in her life, the little girl believed someone truly meant it. The guards stepped forward. their dark armor clicking as they formed a line around the human, the mother, and the little girl. The air grew tense, the marketplace crowd whispering nervously as they backed away. No one dared to interfere. One guard pointed his spear at the human's chest. "This woman is contaminated. By law she must be taken to the quarantine pits," he said coldly. The little girl clung tighter to the human's sleeve, her small voice trembling. "Please don't let them take her. They won't help her there. They will let her die." The human felt her desperation like a weight on his heart. He glanced down at the mother shaking violently on the ground, purple sparks of energy dancing across her skin. He looked at the guards again and said firmly, "She needs medical help, not a death sentence." The guard stepped closer. "Move aside, human. This is your final warning." The human's mind raced. He knew standing here would only make things worse. The guards were trained to follow orders without mercy. They wouldn't listen to reason. He had to act fast. Suddenly, he bent down and lifted the mother into his arms. Her body was light but burning with unstable energy. The girl gasped and quickly followed him as he turned away from the guards. "Stop right there!" The guards shouted, but the human didn't stop. The guards rushed forward, but the human dashed into a narrow alley between two old metal shops. The girl ran right behind him, her small feet tapping loudly on the stone. "Run ahead of me," the human told her. "I'll be right behind you." The girl nodded and sprinted, leading the way through turns only someone who grew up here could know. The guards chased after them, but the alley was too narrow for their armor. They tried forcing their way through, shouting threats, but the human and girl were already far ahead. After several twists and dark corridors, they reached a hidden door covered by loose sheets of metal. The human kicked it open and ushered the girl inside, then closed it behind them. Inside was his workshop, a dim room filled with glowing tools, scattered wires, humming machines, and old human equipment he had repaired over the years. It was messy but safe. He laid the mother gently on a table and quickly scanned her with a handheld device. The screen flashed red warnings. Her cells were collapsing under unstable energy, and strange metallic fragments were inside her bloodstream. The human frowned deeply. This was no sickness. Someone injected her with something they shouldn't have. The girl stood beside him, breathing hard from all the running. Her eyes were wide with fear. Is she dying?" she asked in a quiet voice. He hesitated before answering. "If we don't stop this soon." "Yes." The girl's knees buckled, and she grabbed the edge of the table for support. "Please don't let her die. You're the only one helping us, please." The human placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "I won't let her die, not if there's a way to save her." He turned back to the scanner and increased its sensitivity. The device detected something strange, tiny particles of forbidden nanodust embedded deep in the mother's nerves. The particles pulsed with dark purple light as if alive. He remembered old human reports about a rogue alien scientist who experimented with weaponized energy dust. The symptoms matched: the violent shaking, the energy burns, the nervous system overload, all of it, he whispered. Someone did this to her. On purpose. The girl covered her mouth, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Why would someone hurt my mom?" "She never hurt anyone," the human sighed. "Some people hurt others because they think their experiments matter more than lives." Before he could say more, the scanner beeped loudly, showing a dangerous spike in the mother's energy levels. Her body arched in pain, and she let out a weak cry. "We're running out of time," the human said quickly. "I need to slow down the energy reaction." He grabbed tools, opened a medkit, and began attaching stabilizer patches to her arms and neck. The little girl watched with trembling hands, whispering to her mom, "Please stay alive. Please." Just when the stabilizers started to work, the workshop lights flickered violently. A warning alarm echoed through the room. The human rushed to the door and opened a small metal panel. His eyes widened. Someone was trying to unlock the door from the outside. Someone who knew exactly where they were. Someone who wanted the mother back, he whispered. "They found us." The girl grabbed his arm, her voice shaking. "What do we do?" The human clenched his jaw, grabbed a wrench from the table, and stood in front of the door. "We fight if we have to," he said. But no one is taking your mom again. The shaking mother let out a soft sound, her eyes barely opening, as if she sensed danger approaching. And outside the workshop, heavy footsteps echoed closer. The human tightened his grip, preparing for what was coming, because he made a promise, and he wasn't going to break it. The pounding on the workshop door grew louder, each hit shaking dust from the ceiling. The little girl covered her ears, trembling as metal groaned under the pressure. The human stepped in front of the door, gripping the heavy wrench tightly. His heart pounded, but his voice stayed calm. "Don't be afraid," he whispered to the girl. "I'm here. No one will hurt you." She nodded weakly, but her glowing blue eyes were full of fear. Behind them, the mother lay on the table, still shaking. Though the stabilizer patches had slowed the violent spasms, the purple sparks across her skin had dimmed slightly. But not enough. The human glanced at her and whispered to himself, "We need more time." The door bent inward as something slammed against it again. A loud metallic screech echoed through the workshop. The human knew the guards weren't alone this time. Someone stronger was trying to breach the door, someone who wanted the mother back. He hurried to the control desk and activated the workshop's internal barricade. Thick steel bars slid into place across the door. The little girl ran to her mother's side, holding her hand gently. "Mama, please wake up," she whispered. "Please." The mother's eyes fluttered open for a moment, her gaze unfocused. Her lips moved slowly, barely forming words. The human leaned closer, trying to hear. "Do not let him find her," the mother whispered weakly. The human froze. A cold feeling ran down his spine. Who is looking for her?" he asked gently. The mother's eyes filled with fear, a fear deeper than the pain she was in. "The scientist," she whispered. "He wants my daughter." The little girl gasped and clung to her mother's arm. "Mama, why? Why me?" The mother's body shook violently again, the energy surging through her. She couldn't answer, but the fear in her eyes said enough. The scientist wasn't hurting the mother by accident. He was trying to reach the child. The human clenched his fists, anger burning in his chest. "I won't let anyone take her," he said firmly. He turned to the workstation and increased the scanner's strength. The screen filled with red warning symbols as the machine analyzed the mother's condition deeper than before. Slowly, an image formed on the screen. It showed the inside of the mother's spine. Where a glowing symbol appeared, a thin line of energy formed a cruel mark, almost like a signature. The human's eyes narrowed. "I've seen this before," he muttered. It was the mark of a rogue scientist known for illegal experiments. A scientist who treated living people like test subjects. Someone who believed certain children had unique energy within them. Someone who had already caused deaths in nearby colonies. The little girl stepped closer to the scanner. "What does it mean?" she asked softly. The human took a deep breath. "It means the same person who hurt your mother wants you too." The girl's eyes widened with terror. She took a step back instinctively. "No, I don't want to go with him." "You won't," the human said, kneeling down to her height. "I promise to protect you, and I will." Before he could say more, the lights flickered again. This time, not because of guards at the door, but because someone was hacking the workshop's power system. The machines sputtered, screens blinked, and the backup generators rumbled to life. "They're trying to disable the scans," the human said. "They don't want us to know the truth." He worked quickly, disconnecting the scanner from the main grid and connecting it to a portable power pack. The image stabilized, revealing something even more disturbing. Tiny particles of nanodust were moving inside the mother's nerves, crawling like living insects, searching for one thing: the child's energy. The human whispered, "They used the mother to track you." The girl held her arms tightly around herself, tears dripping down her cheeks. "It's my fault she's hurting," she cried. "Mama got sick because of me." The human knelt and held her gently. "No, listen to me. It's not your fault. It's the scientist's fault. He hurt your family." "Not you," she sobbed quietly, leaning against him. Her small body shook, but he kept his arm around her. providing warmth and safety she had not felt in a long time. Suddenly, the banging on the door stopped. The workshop fell silent. The human's instincts screamed that silence was far more dangerous. He stood and moved toward the door, cautiously, listening. Then, a voice echoed from outside, calm, cold, and filled with confidence. "Human, I know you're inside," the voice said. "Step away from the mother and child." The little girl's breath caught. She recognized the voice instantly. Her eyes went wide with terror. "That's him," she whispered. "That's the scientist." The human's grip on the wrench tightened. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. The voice outside laughed. "You think you can protect them? You don't understand the value of the child." The human stepped closer to the door, his jaw clenched. "The only thing I understand is that you're a monster," he said. The scientist replied calmly, "Open the door, or I'll cut through it." The mother groaned in pain. The child clung to the human, and the workshop lights dimmed again as the threat grew stronger. The human took a deep breath, preparing for the fight of his life, because now he knew the truth, and he wasn't just saving a mother anymore. He was saving a child the entire colony wanted to claim, and he would not let them take her, no matter the cost. Heavy footsteps echoed outside the workshop door. Slower now, heavier, as if something larger than a guard was approaching. The little girl hid behind the human, gripping the back of his shirt with trembling fingers. Her mother lay on the table, breathing in weak, shaking gasps, purple sparks still crawling under her skin like painful fire. The human stood completely still, listening. His heart thumped like a drum, but his face stayed calm. He had to stay strong for the child. Then, the metal door shifted, not from a hit, but from something slicing it. A thin glowing line traced itself across the steel, cutting it like soft cloth. A chilling voice spoke from behind the glowing line. "You cannot hide from me forever, human," the scientist's voice echoed, smooth and cold. "The girl belongs to the research order," the girl gasped and hid her face, whispering, "He found us, he found us." The human crouched beside her and said softly, "Look at me." She lifted her frightened eyes, and he continued, "No matter what happens, stay behind me. I will protect you." She nodded, her lips trembling. The glowing line completed its shape, and a portion of the steel door fell forward with a loud metallic crash. The room filled with dust and sparks. 4 tall alien hunters stepped inside. Their armor was dark and thick, their faces hidden behind glowing red helmets. Energy spears hummed in their hands, sending swirling patterns of purple light into the air. The girl whimpered as she saw them. Then the scientist entered behind them. His long white coat flowed behind him like a shadow. His eyes were sharp, emotionless, hungry. He walked like he owned everything he touched. He looked at the human with amusement. "You caused so much trouble for one simple child," he said calmly. "Hand her to me." The human didn't move an inch. "She's not an object," he said. "She's a child, and she's not going anywhere with you." The scientist sighed. Humans. Always so dramatic, so emotional, so illogical. He waved a hand. "Take the girl." The hunters stepped forward, their heavy boots banging against the metal floor. The girl backed away until she hit the wall, tears running down her cheeks. The human grabbed a hidden switch under the workbench and pulled it. The workshop floor vibrated as traps activated. Electric charges burst from the ceiling, shocking 2 of the hunters and throwing them backward. Flash grenades exploded near the 3rd hunter, blinding him with bright white light. The 4th hunter lunged at the human, swinging his spear. The human dodged and hit him hard with the wrench, knocking the spear out of his hand. The fight was fast, loud, and terrifying. The little girl screamed as sparks flew around her. The mother, weak but conscious for a moment, reached out trembling fingers toward her daughter. The human pushed the last hunter back and kicked him into a pile of machinery. But the scientist only clapped slowly, unimpressed. "You are stubborn," he said. "But this only delays the result." He turned to the girl, who shrank back in fear. "Come here, little star," he said softly. "You were made for something greater than these weak emotions." The human stepped between them again, breathing heavily from the fight. "If you want her," he said, "you'll have to go through me." The scientist smirked. Gladly. He pulled out a small device from his coat, a glowing cube pulsing with purple energy. The moment he activated it, the mother screamed, her body arching in agony. The girl cried out, "Mama!" and ran to her side, grabbing her mother's hand. The scientist watched the reaction with twisted fascination. "The mother is linked to the child," he said. "The energy flows between them. The girl is the source, the key, the perfect subject." The human felt fury rise inside him. He moved toward the scientist. "Stop this!" he shouted, but before he could reach him, the scientist pressed another button, and the cube pulsed again. The mother's shaking grew worse, purple sparks flying across her skin like lightning. The human grabbed the device from the scientist's hand and smashed it on the ground. Sparks exploded from the broken cube, and the mother's pain slowly decreased. The scientist's eyes widened with rage. "You insolent human!" he shouted. "Do you have any idea what you've destroyed?" The human stepped closer, voice low and steady. "I destroyed your control." The mother weakly lifted her head and whispered, "Take her away." But the hunters were recovering, their helmets flickering back to life. The scientist pointed at the girl, shouting, "Take the child." The little girl screamed as one of the hunters lunged for her. The human grabbed her and rolled behind a workbench just in time. The room filled with chaos, sparks, shouts, and crashing metal. But through all the noise, one thing stayed clear: the human's promise. He would not let them take her, not now, not ever. The workshop was filled with smoke, sparks, and the sharp smell of burning wires. The human kept his arm wrapped around the little girl as he hid behind the workbench. Hearing the heavy footsteps of the hunters spreading out across the room, their glowing red helmets scanned the darkness, searching for movement, searching for the child. The mother lay on the table, her body twitching weakly, the stabilizer patches barely holding her together. The purple energy inside her pulsed unevenly, like a storm trapped inside her veins. She tried to lift her head, but her strength was fading fast. The human took a deep breath, trying to think. They couldn't survive another direct fight. The traps were used, the workshop was ruined, and hunters were too strong for another round. He needed a way out, a route the scientist wouldn't expect. He whispered to the girl, "When I say go, hold my hand and run with me. Don't let go." She nodded quickly, eyes wide and fearful. "What about Mama?" she asked in a trembling voice. "We're taking her with us," he said. "I won't leave her behind." He peeked over the workbench. The hunters were spreading out, two near the door, one near the cracked scanner, and one stalking quietly toward the table where the mother lay. The scientist stood calmly in the center, his eyes scanning the shadows with cold confidence. "You're running out of hiding places," the scientist said loudly, his voice echoing in the smoke. "Give me the child, and I might allow the mother to live a little longer." The girl shivered. "He's lying," she whispered. "He always lies." The human squeezed her hand gently. "I know." He scanned the workshop with his eyes and spotted an old hover sled folded against the back wall, once used to transport heavy machines, now dusty but still functional. If he could get the mother onto it, they could escape through the underground tunnels behind the workshop, tunnels only a human mechanic would know. He whispered to the girl, "Stay low." Then he crawled toward the hover sled, keeping his body shielded between her and the hunters. Every second felt like stepping through fire. But he kept moving. A hunter spotted the movement and threw an energy spear across the room. It hit the wall just above the human's head. Exploding in a burst of purple light, the girl screamed, covering her ears. The human reached the hover sled, yanked it open, and activated it. The engine hummed to life with a soft blue glow. He quickly rolled it toward the table, trying to stay hidden in the smoke. But the scientist heard the engine, his cold voice sharpened. "He's attempting an escape." The hunters moved faster now, closing in on the table from all sides. The human grabbed the mother carefully and placed her onto the hover sled. Her body shook violently as the movement disturbed the unstable energy inside her. She let out a weak cry, and the girl reached for her mother's hand. "Mama, please hold on." "We have to go now," the human whispered. He grabbed the sled handles, pulled the girl close beside him, and sprinted toward the back wall. A hidden panel slid open when he pressed his ID bracelet to it, revealing a dark tunnel sloping downward. The scientist shouted, "Stop them!" 3 hunters lunged forward at once. The human pushed the sled into the tunnel and grabbed the girl's hand. They ran inside as spears hit the tunnel walls behind them, sending showers of sparks through the air. The tunnel was dark, narrow, and cold, but safe for the moment. The hover sled floated ahead of them, carrying the mother deeper underground. The girl ran beside the human, tears streaming down her face. "Is Mama going to die?" she whispered, her voice shaking like her steps. The human looked at the mother's trembling form. Her shallow breaths, the glow under her skin. He knew she didn't have much time. "If we don't find help soon," he whispered, then stopped himself. The girl was too scared already. He couldn't make it worse. Instead, he said, "There's an old human outpost ahead. It has medical machines. We're going to try everything." The girl nodded, wiping her tears, trying to be brave after several long minutes of running. The tunnel opened into a forgotten underground chamber filled with old human equipment. Dusty screens, metal cabinets, and a large healing pod stood in the center. The human's heart lifted with hope. He rushed to the pod and activated it. Its lights flickered, then turned bright blue, ready for use. He lifted the mother onto the pod's platform. The girl stood beside him, holding her mother's hand tightly. "Please fix her," she whispered. "Please don't let her go." The human checked the pod's readouts. His face turned serious. The machine detected the nanodust, the energy overload, the nerve damage. But there was one possible cure, one chance. It required an energy transfer, and the donor had to risk everything. The girl noticed his expression and whispered, "What's wrong?" The human looked at her gently. "To save your mom, someone has to give their own energy." The girl's eyes widened. "Will it hurt?" He smiled sadly. "Only if I'm the one who does it." She shook her head quickly. "No, you can't. You'll get hurt." He placed his hand on her shoulder. "Your mom would do this for you, so now I will do it for her." He stepped toward the pod and pressed his hand to the activation panel. A bright blue light filled the room. The cure was beginning, and the human had chosen to sacrifice everything to save her mother. The chamber filled with a deep blue glow as the healing pod began the transfer. The human stood perfectly still inside the light, his hand pressed against the activation panel. His eyes narrowed with determination, but his body trembled as the machine pulled energy from him. The little girl watched in fear, clutching her mother's other hand. "Please stop, you'll get hurt," she cried. The human forced a weak smile. "It's okay," he whispered. "Your mom needs this more than I do." The blue light wrapped around the mother like a warm blanket. Her twitching slowed, the painful shaking became softer, and the purple sparks slowly faded. The glow beneath her skin dimmed as the nanodust inside her began to dissolve, but every spark that left her body entered the human instead. His knees buckled, and he grabbed the side of the pod for balance. A wave of pain surged through him, but he didn't pull away. The mother's breathing steadied, the violent convulsions stopped. Her color returned little by little and her eyes slowly opened halfway. She looked around weakly, confused. The girl leaned over her, tears falling onto her mother's face. "Mama, you're waking up," she whispered, voice trembling with hope. The mother blinked slowly, her voice barely a whisper. "My star, you're safe." The girl hugged her tightly, sobbing with relief. But when the mother looked past her daughter and saw the human shaking inside the blue light, her eyes widened in fear. "What is he doing?" she whispered. The girl looked back at him, her small hands trembling. "He's saving you, Mama," she whispered. "He gave everything." The mother tried to sit up, panic showing in her eyes, but she didn't have the strength. "No, he must stop. He will die." The machine hummed louder. Blue light pulsed faster. The human's breathing grew rough, sweat dripping down his face, but he still didn't step away. He whispered between breaths, "Just a little more. She needs a little more." Suddenly, a loud alarm echoed through the chamber. The girl turned toward the entrance tunnel and froze. Shadows moved on the walls. Heavy footsteps echoed closer. and the cold voice of the scientist spread through the chamber like poison. "You cannot escape your fate," he said, stepping into the light, "and the child cannot escape mine." Behind him marched 6 more hunters, larger than the ones before, armored in reinforced plates. Their red helmets flickered like hungry eyes ready to devour anything in their path. The girl screamed and rushed to the human, grabbing his arm. "Please get up, please, they're coming." The human tried to pull his hand off the panel, but he couldn't move. The machine was mid-transfer. The pod needed him until the very last moment. If he stopped now, the cure would fail. "Go. Hide," he whispered weakly. "No." She cried, "I'm not leaving you." The mother tried to lift her arm, her voice desperate. "Take my daughter." "Run." But the scientist stepped forward with a sneer. "No one is running," he said coldly. "The girl belongs to the order, and the human belongs in the ground." He raised a control device, ready to shock them and collapse the chamber. But then something unexpected happened. The healing pod beeped softly. A bright golden flash spread across the mother's body. Her shaking stopped completely. Her breathing became strong and steady. The cure was complete, and with that final moment, the machine released the human. He collapsed onto the floor, gasping for air, his body weak and shaking. The girl dropped to her knees beside him, holding his hand tightly. "Please don't die," she cried. "Please, you're our family now." The scientist pointed at her with cold triumph. "Take the girl," he ordered the hunters. But before they could move, a shadow rose from the healing pod. The mother stood on her feet, her eyes glowing bright gold, the leftover energy of the cure swirling around her like a living flame. Her voice trembled, not from weakness, but from rage. "You hurt me," she said softly. "You hunted my child." The scientist stepped back, fear breaking through his icy mask. This is impossible," he stuttered. The mother lifted her hand, energy crackling between her fingers. "You will never touch her again." With a thunderous burst of golden light, she unleashed the energy stored inside her. A shockwave blasted through the chamber, throwing hunters against the walls, snapping their armor and shattering their weapons. The scientist screamed as the energy wrapped around him, his device melting in his hand. He stumbled backward, falling to the ground. Shocked and powerless, the chamber went silent, except for the hum of the healing pod. The mother rushed to the human and knelt beside him, lifting his head gently. "You saved me," she whispered, tears sliding down her cheeks. "You saved us both." The girl hugged him tightly, sobbing into his chest. "Don't leave us, please." The human opened his eyes slowly, weak but alive. He managed a faint smile and whispered, "I told you. I wouldn't walk away." The mother and child held in together, their family broken by fear, rebuilt by courage finally safe. And for the first